All right. Welcome everyone to our office hours with the Intuit developer team. Thank you all for being here today. Today's office hours is going to focus on API call optimization. So, as all of you know, Intuit is launching a new partner program very soon. And as part of that, we decided to do like a couple of sessions on API call optimization to help you with some strategies on how you can optimize the number of API calls you're making. Soumya will be presenting a couple of strategies that we have, and after that, we'll open it out for questions from all of you. You can use the Q&A window during the presentation as well as the chat to ask any questions while the presentation is in progress. I would request that you hold off any live questions until Soumya is done with her presentation. And with that, it's over to you, Soumya.
Thanks, Shweta. So, welcome to the office hours, and we'll do a short presentation where we wanted to walk you through some strategies on optimizing your API calls. So, just to start with a disclaimer, just to let you know, the strategies that we are presenting here are based on general patterns that we have seen. Obviously, your application and your business process might need individual evaluation on your own on whether these strategies that we are suggesting are applicable for your use case or not. So please feel free to look into the strategies, implement them as needed, or you can always look at alternate strategies that's applicable for you. Now, we believe there are different phases to these API optimization. So, hence, we divided into different phases. I think at first phase, we would request you to evaluate your application and business process based on how the APIs are being categorized as part of the App Partner Program. So, as you might be already aware, but let's have a short recap. As part of the App Partner Program, there are two main categories of APIs now, what we call them as core and core plus. So core APIs are specifically most data in or write operations that you do into QuickBooks. These are unmetered and uncharged. And then there are core plus APIs, which mostly are the data out or the read operations that you're doing. And those are metered and charged accordingly. Now, the presentation that we are doing today is focused on helping you reduce the core plus API calls, which are being metered. And right now, as part of the app partner program, only QuickBooks accounting APIs are being metered, whereas the other APIs such as payment, desktop, payroll, any OAuth endpoints, and sandbox endpoints are not metered. Now, you might have already viewed your analytics dashboard on your Intuit developer account. And we have received several requests that you would like to see the breakdown of, core plus API calls as per the entities or the category. So we are working actively on that. Meanwhile, please open a support ticket with us with the details of your application and a request that you would like to see specific breakdown of the core plus APIs for your app, and we will provide it to you. Now, once you understand your API categories, there's a strategy that we recommend is you can go back and see how frequently the entities change. So, or the changes happen to these entities. For example, what we have seen is preferences and company info. They are mostly related to the QuickBooks account settings, right? So they change less frequently than how estimates or sales receipt or invoices change. For example, uh, hourly you might be posting a lot of invoices, invoice and sales receipt, but the company settings might not change at that same frequency. So this is just an estimate, obviously, based on your application or your business processes. The frequency might be different, but you can look back and see like how the change frequency or the update frequency is happening, because that would determine how many reads you have to make to the endpoint. Now, once you've categorized the frequency of changes or how many times you might need to read these endpoints, the next step would also be to look at the syncs, like sync settings for your application. Like at what are the methodology based on which you're doing the sync? Are you doing like user initiated syncs for every time a user refreshes a page, or there's a manual refresh button that triggers the syncs? or it's a automated polling thing that's happening. We have noticed, like based on the interactions that we have had, there are a lot of user initiated syncs that result in duplicate or unnecessary read calls being made, or even excessive calls being made when there's really no change or update that's happened to that entity. And with regards to polling, what we notice is large data sets are being fetched repeatedly and without really filtering on the critical data that you need. So you end up making excessive repeated calls just to pull in a huge volume of data. So just evaluate, like, is there any part of the application or the business process that's causing these uh, excessive reads. Now, this is just the evaluation phase. Obviously, after evaluating, the next step is like, what are the strategies that you could implement, right? So, this section of refining your application or business process for the read API calls, there are we have divided into two sections. One is like, what are the Intuit provided entities or tools that you could use to help you reduce the amount of core plus or read API calls that you make. So the most popular recommendation that we give is to use webhooks. That if you're already aware that you can enable webhooks on your Intuit developer account to receive notification whenever an entity actually changes. So this way, instead of constantly polling for like huge amount of data and then figuring out what has changed, you can just enable the webhook for a particular entity, and that way you receive a notification, an event notification from us that says, okay, this entity has changed. So, for example, for preferences endpoint, whenever a user has actually changed a QBO setting, at that particular time, you will receive a webhook which gives you ID of that operation and the name of that entity and when was the last change made. And you don't really need to uh, you know, immediately implement or process a webhook event. You can collect it, cache it, and then process it based on your business process need or your application's requirement. So we highly recommend enabling webhooks. Right now, webhooks is not billable, as in you can enable the webhooks and receive the events, and they are not charged. So switch to event driven architecture and then decide like how you can, along with polling, how you can manage that, or maybe avoid polling altogether. It obviously depends on your application, but we definitely recommend implementing webhooks for all entities that are available. Now, the second thing that we wanted to share is we have the CorePlus APIs, and as part of the CorePlus APIs, you can see these entities are being metered. But we still believe that instead of making individual read calls for each entity, you can actually either batch them together, or you can use change data capture or query with specific parameters. So let me walk you through each one of them. In case you are already aware, that's great, and if your application is using it, that's really great. But we would like to do a quick recap here. So for the batch endpoint, I specifically wanted to point out that you can since batch endpoint is being metered, you can make up to, like, in each batch call you can make 30 core plus or read calls in one call, and then try to maybe reduce the number of core API calls you put in the batch. What I mean to say is, instead of using batch for like create operations, you can actually use the batch for read operation. And then based on, let's say, within a batch, if you have slots available, you can maybe have the create operations in there, or create operations you can do them separately out of the batch. So try to utilize batch as much as possible for the core plus or the read API requests. Then we have change data capture. So as you are aware that you can query multiple transactions over a period of time. So when you query for the set of transactions, you also get the payload. So it's not just since when the entities have changed, but also the payload. So it helps you get around maybe 1,000 objects, and you can query multiple entities. So, for example, you need to read 50 bills, 50 invoices, 50 customer records. You just make one CDC call within a time frame and you get all the requests together. And the third is query. So obviously you will still be querying based on your needs, but we request that you start using query params when possible within the query. For example, instead of using blanket select star statements, you can add where clause. And since you will fetch more data in one call, you can reduce the number of subsequent read calls. There's another thing that we have noticed based on our interaction is when if you don't specify max results in a query call, it defaults to returning 100 results. So we always recommend that when you're doing a select statement, try to mention the start position and max results at 1000 so that you can pull in more data in one call and hence reduce the subsequent calls. So these are some of the examples or the ways you can look at the core API categories and then decide, like based on your application and your business process, how you could best utilize and optimize your read calls. So this now the second part is obviously based on your needs. There are different strategies you could apply, but we are sharing some common industry standards, and hopefully you have already applied. If not, you can look at how you can apply or change the optimization according to these strategies. So first, of course, is very common is having an in-memory cache with a time to live setting. So we have noticed that instead of repeatedly hitting our endpoints to query the same set of data and filtering out, you can have a you can read from your own internal cache and make sure in that cache you're actually storing the metadata as well. For example, sometimes we have seen application making read calls only to know about the last modified date or sync token. Instead, if you have the metadata along with the entity details in the cache, you can just read it. And to make sure your cache is fresh or the data needs to be refreshed, just set the time to live parameter based upon your requirements. And then once the cache uh, time to live setting expires, you can trigger a CDC call, or you can wait for a webhook event to come in and then update your cache. The next thing is avoiding redundant calls. So this is pretty obvious, but we have noticed the pattern, so we are recommending it that as soon as you do a create operation, please don't do a read again. Use the response payload, or even better, like cache it and then use it for your internal application processing. So try to avoid immediate queries just after create operations. See if you can handle that data within your application. And the third recommendation is alerts and monitoring. It would be good if, obviously, you'll have alerts and monitoring in place, but with the launch of this App Partner Program, you can look at adding more alerts and monitoring. Specifically, we have noticed that there might be certain features in your apps that are triggering more read queries compared to like other operations. So see what's causing a high volume, and like what are your high volume endpoints, or what features or companies or realms are making repetitive calls. And you can set alerts for there and compare it with the analytics dashboard that we provide. So these are some generic strategies. There are a lot more, and there might be many more related to your application, but we just wanted to make few recommendations here. Now, finally, we talked about like the individual components, but just wanted to give you a full picture of how it looks like if you implement all these strategies together. So let's say a user connects the app to QuickBooks Online. You initially do a one full data load, and one possible strategy you could use is when you the data that's frequently accessed, you store it in the cache, and then transactional data such as invoices, payment, you can store it in the primary database. That's just one strategy. It depends on you. You can store everything in your primary database or everything in cache, but these are some things you can do. And then next, any update that's made or any changes that happens, you can read that via batch CDC and also use our webhooks. So when a webhook is received based on the timestamp, identify the event, then batch it all the events together, and then make a read query. Update your cache accordingly. In case you want to avoid situations where you're missing webhook events, you can use change data capture. And then with caching, as mentioned, you can avoid the redundant read calls. So make sure the TTL parameter set in the cache that determines whether the cache is fresh or stale. So based on that, if a cache data is fresh, you can display it on your drop down menus to the user on the UI immediately. If it's stale, then you fetch it through change data capture, or ideally you would have received a webhook event which you could process. And then finally, you are continuously monitoring and tuning so that you can find areas or patterns that are causing repetitive reads, which you can fine tune and maybe optimize. So that's what the overall journey looks like. You can add strategies here, or if the strategies mentioned here are not applicable, you can modify them. But we thought this would be like a good starting point for you in case you do some of the strategies are not yet implemented, or you can just fine tune in case you have already implemented them. We can, I guess, open the floor for any questions that you might have. Yeah.
Thank you, Soumya. I appreciate the presentation. So, folks, I think how we're going to do this, there are there are a number of participants on this call. So you can use either the chat or the Q&A window to ask questions. If you have a question that you don't want to ask in this public forum, do send a message on the chat, and we can try to put you into a breakout room with one of our support engineers. I will repeat that this office hours is going to be focused on API call optimization and the API usage. So if you have questions outside of that, I would request you to open a ticket for the team so we can look into that separately. The first question I see on the chat right now is, as part of the analytics, do we provide number of API calls per realm ID and the number of times throttling limits were exceeded and when it happened per realm ID? So let me answer this question really quickly. So at the moment, we do not provide that level of detail. The API call usage is across like the entire app. We don't show it per specific realm IDs. This is coming in the future, but I do not have a time on when this is available. We also the API usage chart today will not be showing you the number of times the throttling limits are exceeded. Sorry. The other plans to create a webhook for tax codes. We don't have any thing on the timeline to increase the number of webhooks available. However, we can take this back to the team to see if this is something that is doable in the near future. If a webhook is missed, are there retry mechanism to resend webhooks? At the moment, we don't have a retry mechanism. That's when I think you could use the CDC endpoint as well. We always kind of recommend that you use webhooks in conjunction with CDC, so that that if you think that you missed a webhook, then you can definitely use CDC to see what has changed or what was created in the time that you might have missed. I hope that helps to answer your question. Are there any live questions? If you can maybe use the react button, I can definitely unmute and we can go from there. All right, Sachin, looks like you have a question. Please go
Yeah.
ahead.
So actually, it is just making sure that okay. So if in a batch we are sending 5 read APIs, and then but we will be charged for one API only call because.
Yes, that's right. So the batch API call will hit our end will hit our service like once, or like so it's for the URL that you're hitting, and even if you have up to 30 requests in that, it'll be charged as one, it'll be metered as one single API call.
Mm. And one more confirmation, I received it in the support ticket, but I just want to re-verify that one as well. So now, like earlier, like okay, webhooks were time, like okay, they were not real time. Now it is real time. So now, like okay, each webhook will be a single entity and single realm ID. Is it correct? Or it can a webhook can have multiple entities as well.
We would have
I
to
think so.
check.
Chris answered the support ticket, but yeah, I just want to reconfirm that thing because based on that, we can change our implementation and we can optimize that one.
Got it. I don't think we've changed a lot of things, but I may be mistaken, Sachin. Maybe we can reconfirm on your on the ticket that you already have on this topic.
Oh, okay.
There's a question about, do we support CDC for accounting reports? Um, Soumya, if that's something you can take up, or can we might have to get
Can
back?
double check that, but right now it looks like entities, but we can run and check, confirm that back. Thank you for that question.
In the documentation, it defines, we see core and core plus API calls. We also have premium API. So the question is, what exactly is a premium API? I can answer that. So the premium APIs actually are a set of a few new APIs that we are releasing as part of the partner program. We have four new APIs that we are going to release soon. Sales tax API, so calculation of sales tax API. Then we have payroll compensation, custom fields, as well as projects. These four are what we consider today as premium APIs. These are outside the core, and they are kind of outside the definition of core and core plus right now because they are brand new. The premium APIs will be available for early access to gold and platinum partners starting in July, and it will be available for silver partners later in the year. Does that help to answer your question, Chris? All right. There's another question here. Do we need to apply for the Intuit Partner Program before we create an integration and use QuickBooks API, or how does this affect existing integrations? So no, you do not need to. This a new partner program is impacting everybody on our platform. It's not just new or existing partners. If you are a new partner, then when you go in, you will automatically be in the builder tier. That's which is the first tier of our partner program. For developers based in the US, we just released a billing and subscriptions tab available in the dev portal. If you go in there and configure a payment method, that will put you into the silver tier. And you can do this whether you're a new or an existing partner. I hope that answers your question, Jasmine.
Yes, thank you.
Mhm. All right. Any other questions that folks want to ask live on the call?
I have some questions about throttling, but I'm not sure if it's the right forum. But if it is, can you explain the throttling limits regarding regular APIs, batch APIs, and so on?
Got it. Maybe I can put you into a breakout room with one of our support engineers to talk about this there. For the sake of the
Sure.
group, let me just share a link. So, hold on. And I'm going to put a link into the chat for everyone to see. This is a link on our developer portal that talks about the different limits in place that we have for both single endpoints as well as batch endpoints. But Serge, if you have specific questions beyond this, I can I'll add you to a breakout room. Give me 1 second, please. The question here is, can you share about how to consolidate workspaces? How do we move two into one? Thanks for the question, Doug. So at the moment, we don't have a way to consolidate workspaces in a self-service sort of model. This is likely coming in the future. We might have like a process available where we can help you to do this, but we don't have this available at the moment. Jasmine, I see that you have a couple more questions. Maybe I can add you to a breakout room with somebody. Give me a second, please. Are there any other questions on this forum? What are the planned pricing or limits for the upcoming sales tax API? That's a great question. So at launch, the sales tax, the new premium sales tax API will not be metered or charged. We don't have any future information about what it might look like later on. But when we release it, there will be no limits or pricing applicable to the sales tax API. Will we be able to see a breakdown of the CorePlus API calls we're making? Yes, there is some work in progress. The team is working on providing more detailed analytics on the developer portal soon. I don't have timelines on it, but if you need to know this information beforehand, I can actually help you out. We can add you to a breakout room right now with one of the support engineers. They can help you determine this right now, or you can open a ticket with us and we can look at it there. Would you like me to do that, Josh? All right, let me move you to the other rooms. All right. The next question is the sales tax API for USA only, or does it have any global support? I'm actually not sure. Diana, if you're on the call, is that something that you can help answer? Is new sales tax API for US, or is it also available globally?
Soumya, you want to take it? I can answer as
Yeah,
well.
it's US only right now. Yeah.
Thank you. Do premium APIs come with throttle limits? Yes, there is some throttle limits applicable to the premium APIs as well. Information about this will be shared in our documentation once we have the APIs live and ready for use. Are there any other questions? All right. There's a question here that says, we are currently using tax jar for sales tax, which has been accurate. We would consider moving to the next tier to get access to it, but how accurate is it, or is it possible to see a demo before? That's a great question. So at the moment we have it, we are opening up early access to the new APIs in July for gold and platinum partners. If you are a silver partner, the API will be available to you later in the year. Perhaps you can maybe open a ticket with us to kind of explain your use case, and we can have you on our interest list. If you're not in the gold and platinum, we can add you to our interest list, and we'll let you know when the API is generally available for you to use as well. I hope that helps. Thank you. Are there any other live questions in the room? All right, Sachin, looks like you have some questions about webhooks. All right, yeah, I think our breakout rooms are probably okay. They're available. Let me add you to one of the rooms, Sachin. All right. Any other questions here? All right, the Intuit developer team will be hanging out on this Zoom for a little while longer. So if any other questions come up, please do uh, reach out. All right, looks like we are wrapping up most of the questions. There are a couple of breakout rooms open, so we will let those folks continue to discuss. Are there any more questions here? All Awesome. All right. Well, thank you all for joining this office hours today. We hope this was useful and that you got some good insight into some of the API optimization techniques that Samya shared. If you have any questions, like I said, we will be here for another few minutes. So do raise it here, or you can also always open up a support ticket for our team. Thank you all. The question here, unrelated to this, but the question from Raj is, any plans to add banking information to the bill payment object? We are not doing any enhancements on our current API at the moment. If we do release any new fields and things, it will be part of later schemas, and depending on the kind of change, we will do additional communication about it as well. Hope that helps. All right. Brad or Doug, did you have any questions for the team today? The question from Doug is, will we have to pay twice since we are not able to consolidate the workspaces? That's a great question. Diana, are you able to help me answer that?
I'm actually not sure either, Chad or Doug.
Yeah.
Maybe we
That
can
is probably
back.
a chat question then, Doug. I think it's a question for your PDM, I think.
I try to come up with good questions along the way.
Um,
No, we were told that this today's call was going to be about workspaces, and apparently there's not additional clarity behind it as far as a path forward. And Sarita, I actually sent you an email following up from your what you shared with me, just make sure I captured it correctly. But it was our understanding that we would potentially have to pay twice for each of the two products that we have in the workspaces, i.e. two workspaces. And that if we consolidated, then we wouldn't have to. So it sounds like it's a follow-up question for a discussion with Catherine and Chad. It sounds like, if I'm catching it correctly.
Yeah, possibly. And then what we can do is we can just kind of chat with them separately as well to make sure they're all aligned on this, and then get back to you, Doug.
That'd be great. Any insight and direction? We're here and ready to consolidate or do whatever we need to. But I also want to thank you and all your team for these office hours. They take up a large part of your day, I suspect, but it does give us the opportunity to get some clarity and enable our teams to move forward to meet your July 28th deadline and without any hiccups or issues. So thank you for the time that you spend in answering all these questions.
Oh, I'm so glad to hear that this has been helpful for you and your team, Doug. Always happy to help.
And I love the backgrounds, by the way. They're awesome.
Oh. Well, we can't claim credit for that. There is some awesome designers behind that.
So I'll look for the response, and I know Catherine is out this week, so we'll connect when she's back. And I thank you guys for everything. Do appreciate it. And Shweta, we'll see you tomorrow then, I guess.
All right, sure.
Thank you so much.